I swear, Bleach is probably the only anime that I can think of right now that one goes by way too fast and two makes me wish it was at least 45 minutes long. Because if we had more time with it, this episode would have been absolutely perfect. So, episode 38, titled Friend, was the whole story of Basby and Jugrum Halschwat. And real quick, my score, I struggle between a 4.5 and a 5 out of 5 because I wanted more time in the current day fights because that shit went hard. But at the same time, we had so much good stuff in the flashback. This is why I said I wish we had more time with it because I wanted more of it. And sadly, that's not the case. So in this episode, we got the flashback between Jugrum and Basby. We saw how they met each other. Before I get into the spoilers, animation was beautiful. They really brought it this episode. Soundtrack was amazing. There was a remix of an older Bleach song in this one. And of course, we had some of the modern takes of classic songs on this episode as well. The fight choreography and the modern day portion of this episode was amazing. But yeah, that's quick 2 cents thoughts on it. It delivered. I know we have 2 more episodes left. It was in my head supposed to be 13, but here recently they just announced that it's going to be 14 episodes, which isn't a bad thing because that means more Bleach for us. And I'm wondering where they're going to end this score because I think the next 2 episodes are going to be nice setups. Cliffhanger on episode 39 and 40. It's going to piss you off and make you happy at the same time. And I'm just going off of what I know from the manga, so get prepared for that. Now let me dive a little bit more in detail of what went down on this episode. First off, it starts with a flashback. We saw a young Jugrum and Basby when they first initially met. Jugrum's trying to hunt a rabbit, has no luck, and what was interesting is he was hunting with a regular bow and arrow. As we all know, Quincy's can manifest bows in some form or another, or in some cases guns. But that's neither here nor there. We see Basby show up. He has a crossbow already that he can manifest. He kills the rabbits and they introduce themselves. Now we jump back into current day and we're seeing the fight between adult Jugrum Hauswaltz and adult Basby, and it is very one-sided to say the least. And one-sided in the sense that Basby is doing all of the attacking, and another sense where you can tell Jugrum's not even trying. And that just shows how insanely powerful he is. Because throughout this whole fight, Basby's throwing everything at him, and Jugrum barely gets a scratch, and he's not even worried about it at all. Burger Finger 1, 2, and 3, Basby does what he can to no avail. Jugrum's dodging, deflecting, moving around, counterattacking. He's just so much better than Basby. Come back to the past, we see what happened with Basby's castle. All the people that he knew growing up, they were all slaughtered by Yuha Baha. And this just goes to show how much of a villain Yuha Baha is, because they were just slaughtering everybody. And during this attack, we see one of Yuha Baha's followers blow the head off of Basby's mother. I was not expecting that, and that looked insane. And to top things off, Yuha Baha brings down this massive bow that we've seen variations of in current day Bleach and just obliterates the whole town or castle, whatever it was. And the only survivor is Basby. As they're leaving, we see that Yuha Baha has the Almighty. Obviously, it was the earlier iteration of it, but he still has it. As the flashback continues, we see how Jugrum and Basby are training to get stronger. Jugrum is never able to manifest a bow and arrow, but he's still training with the sword he found at the castle. Basby is getting stronger. We see him rocking 2 crossbows. He's just enhancing what he can because their whole plan is to get revenge on Yuha Baha for basically wiping out their tribe, clan, city, castle, whatever it is. It feels like the Quincy's were separated in different areas or different branches, but Yuha Baha, like I said, destroyed Basby's group, and you even see one of his officers tell Yuha Baha that there's no more areas to conquer. And that's when Yuha Baha said, we're going to create a new group and go after Soul Society. When they finally get to this certain town, Bazby and Jugrum are there. They are listening in to what's going on. They announce that they're creating the Stern Raider group. They're looking for Quincy's to join them. And Bazby's, being the arrogant character he is, steps up and he's ready to throw down with one of Yuhaba's captains, generals, wherever he is. And he's saying he wants to join. They brush him off, see him kind of as a peasant, and that pisses off Bazby. Bazby goes in for the attack, and then all of the Quincy's there are brought down to their hands and knees by Yuhabaha's spiritual pressure. After this happens, we find out that Yuhabaha is there for the person he's looking for, the person that will become his right hand. Bazby, which is who we're focused on at this point, believes it's him. He's trying to force himself up from this spiritual pressure, and lo and behold, Jugrum Hoshwalt is standing. And Yuhabaha says, Jugrum Hoshwalt, you're the one I was looking for. You are my other half. You were born without power. And that's when he tries to say, I am not the guy you're looking for. Jugrum doesn't know what to do. He looks at Bazby, and Bazby has this look on his eyes that really throws Jugrum off. You can see a sadness in his eyes, and he's like, don't look at me like that. And that's a very interesting thing, because when you look at the current battle that's going on, Jugrum's not trying. If you pay attention, when we first meet Bazby and Jugrum is bruised all on his arms, and it's hinted at that he is abused by his uncle, at the very least. There's been talks on the online world that it could have been more, but at the very least, he's been abused by his uncle. He doesn't live with his parents, he lives with his uncles. We see the bruises on his arm, and the way his uncle talks, it's very off-putting, so take that as you will. But before his uncle shows up, Bazby tosses him a coin from his little cape that he has, and it is Bazby's B. If you pay attention to Jugrum's sword, as an adult, he has that B coin embedded in his sword. So I believe there is a type of sibling or best friend relationship between these two. When Bazby is looking at Jugrum with such hatred and anger, it really breaks Jugrum's mind or heart in a sense, because you can tell he's visibly disturbed by this look that he's receiving from the person he's grown up with, and he absolutely hates it. And in that moment, when Bazby shoots at Yuhabaha, Jugrum completely stops it, has a completely different look on his face. It's hard to pinpoint why that is. I've been seeing some discourse online that it could be maybe Stockholm Syndrome type of deal, but it's hard to say. I'm not going to try to attempt to get into the mind of Tite Kubo. That dynamic is there. The relationship between Jugrum and Bazby is a very unique one, to say the least, because we come back to current timeline and they're fighting, and Bazby has no real chance. He tries to do a burner finger 4, which is this massive attack, and Hoshwalt just cuts off his arm, and with no effort. And it's crazy because when he cuts off his arm, you see his arm fly through the rock. It's being carried by this momentum from the fire, and it does strike the pillar that's by the castle, and it does some damage. So you can tell it's a powerful move for Bazby, but still nothing. When we go back to the flashback, we see the two characters finally in the Stern Raider group, and Bazby constantly tries to fight Jugrum, but he ignores them the whole time. Even when he's called out by his contemporaries, he just has no interest in fighting Bazby. And that has continued to the point where this was inevitable. They were going to clash because one is standing with Yuhabaha and the other one still wants revenge. They both probably started wanting revenge, but at this point that's not the case. For as loyal as Jugrum Hoshwalt is to Yuhabaha, he still loves his best friend from when they were a child. And at the very end, Bazby does a massive Burner Finger 4 attack, Burner Finger 5. I can't remember exactly. It's 4 or 5, but it's basically the whole hand. And Hauswald just slices his chest and completely ignored or negated that attack. It did nothing to him. And as he's bleeding all over the place, he's walking towards Jugrum. You can tell Basby knew this was going to happen. He even says, I thought I would have felt differently. I thought it would have hurt more. He's at this point, he's just accepted his fate. He grabs Jugrum and then he falls. And as Jugrum's walking away, he's replaying the conversation when they first met. You never see his eyes. His face is kept down. His hair is covering his face. And honestly, I thought we were going to see a tear or something because that's the vibe that that moment was giving. And he's walking up the stairs. He puts his sword away. Boom, title card. And that's where the episode ends. And holy shit, like, yeah, I wanted more of the modern day fight because the way they were fighting just looked so good. But the truth of the matter is, Judum wasn't even trying. He was just so much more powerful. He never even had to pull out his Volstandic. He just was able to beat him one-on-one like that. So yeah, it's a shame we lost a good character in Basby. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about Judum because seeing how all that came to be and seeing what they added to the animation, he is not the complete villain that Yuha Baha is. And they really made you feel for the guy on this episode. So, like I said, it was another great episode. I'm stuck between a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5. The only thing I could have asked for was more time because it was so good. But yeah, that's where I'm going to end this week's episode. I hope you have a good one, and I will talk to you soon.